we are back at it. So I think we should be able to finish up this bobbin today, hopefully. And maybe make some more headway on the other bobbin. So a possibility remains to be seen. I've been itching to do, not this nail. So I'm just, okay. Great. I'm gonna hazard a guess that, hang on, see if I can at least show you guys. Hazard a guess that the rubber band holding my footman together, or not rubber band, scrunchie, is what it's called. I'm guessing that has lost its elasticity. The good news is I'm pretty sure I have a actual rubber band here somewhere that I can use. I do not have any other hair ties though. I don't have hair, so hair ties aren't really necessary. Okay, there's one pretty close by. Hi, Ciaro. Give me a minute to fix my wheel. I'll be right back, guys. Sorry. So this rubber band will work. I'm also hoping that maybe this failing was the cause of some of the noises I've been having. So hopefully changing this out will help with multiple things. It had a good run though. That thing's literally been on there since I got this wheel. So it's been a good 5 or 6 years, I think, if not longer. I don't know what exactly is supposed to be happening with a footman to make it not require a rubber band in the first place. But whatever that is, it's not happening with this footman. This footman does not work at all. But it's easily fixable, you know. DIY wheel repair. Yeah, that's the only kind. I just wouldn't even know how to repair it otherwise, right? Who would I bring it to? I have no idea. There we go, that works way better. How was that thing? Wow, I think it was about to snap too. Look, you can see it got, hang on. Got super thin there by my finger. Wrong finger, that finger. But it's also just twice as long as a hair tie should be. Interesting. There's a place near you that does that kind of work, but you don't know how common it is. I guess there's probably places near me too. Presumably any sort of carpenter would be able to fix it, or at least have an idea of how to fix it, if not actually fix it. And there's definitely some carpenters where I live, but there's not a ton. They mostly are rich and live on the outskirts of the city, which I can't quite understand, but yeah, I don't know. There probably is somebody though, you're right. Glad it was as easy to fix as it was though. It really was about to snap, yeah. I guess I'm just lucky that it didn't snap while I was spinning or something. Because most likely it would have been fine, but possibly it would have created a scenario where the end of my singles got lost in the bobbin or something like that, which is always really annoying. So at least this time, I'm harmed about. That said, though, in my experience, hair ties are a little bit more durable than rubber bands. So I'll probably need to replace this. Good news is I have a whole bunch of these that fell into my bag at work. Fell into my bag at work. Got some exciting dye stuff going on that is making me very impatient. Because like if it's ready by the time that I finish up with this seat, by the time all my buttons are filled in, and like obviously the first skein I'm gonna try spinning is gonna be some of the dyed stuff, like obviously. So I'm very excited. The only thing is I don't know exactly how long cotton takes to dry, like when it's just in a big lump like that. Fleece sure takes a really long time to dry like that. Imagine cotton is about the same. So it's possible that it actually won't be dry until after I finish this. In which case I'll just start with a white skein. Losing the end is the worst. I know, right? It's only happened a couple of times, but it was always like an incredibly fine, delicate, beautiful, neat, like lace weight or thinner singles, and I just would always totally butcher it trying to find the end again. Super frustrating. You buy rubber bands for weaving purposes, and they go bad so fast here. Interesting. I wasn't necessarily thinking going bad, but more just losing their stretch and therefore being kind of useless. I don't like. I've had rubber bands do something that I would describe as going bad, which is like getting all brittle and hard and totally losing all stretch. But that seems to only happen if they're left outside, where I live anyway. But like with my e-spinner, I used rubber bands. I think it originally came with a rubber band that snaps like immediately. So I just used more rubber bands to connect the motor to the wire. And those tend to just start like shredding and pulverizing themselves really quickly, which could also be considered going bad. Plastic can rot in a lot of different ways, a lot of interesting ways. This feels so much smoother. So I'm gonna guess actually that maybe that fucked up rubber band has been causing problems for a lot longer than like, you know, the second when it snapped. Because it's not usually this. It's usually a bit of play in the footman, like it opens up a bit, and then I don't know the term of what connects the wheel to the footman. But like this bit right here that then goes into the footman, and that also goes into the wheel. That bit will like sort of move around and sometimes slide around a little. And it's currently not doing that at all. And I feel like it requires a little bit less effort to treble right now because I'm not having to deal with that. So very appreciative. The footman is more visually still too. Yeah. Has not at all changed the wobble of the wheel though. I can't believe I didn't notice how bad it is until you pointed it out. But like it's jerking each time. That can't be helping. But I don't really understand what's causing it to do that, so I don't understand how to fix it either. And also, it's always done this. I just have never ever noticed how bad it was. So I don't know. For such an expensive wheel, it sure did come with many defects. I'm still kind of salty about that. I love my wheel. It should have been a hell of a lot cheaper though. Oh well, it's okay. The prep for these Rolex is mostly pretty good, but I'm realizing that apparently when I make Rolex, I do go all the way to either side of the cards, which for some reason I thought maybe I didn't, or maybe I just went really light on that, like on the, centimeter or so to the edges. I thought maybe I went a little lighter there, but when I was making these Rolex, I think Friday at work, I was sort of paying more attention to how I do it and realizing like, wow, no, I load them all the way to the end and they stay all the way in the end. And then I guess I usually just pull off fiber that's not getting combed and put it back in the middle. And now I'm like, I don't think that was the right call. I don't think that's ever been the right call. I think I can probably adjust that. I was really hoping that the squeaking was because of the footman, but it's not. Damn it. That's too bad. You know so little about treble wheels. Honestly, me too. Like, I'm not sure how much more I know about them than somebody who hasn't used them. Like, I know how they work, but only how they work. I don't know how to debug them, or really how to fix them. I mean, this particular one was easy because I had a stretchy thing on there, so I put a different stretchy thing on there. But like literally anything more than that, and I'm pretty lost. I'm also not a car person. I feel like if I was a car person, I'd be able to figure out wheels too. But mechanical things really don't make sense to me. Never really have. My compression cuffs are supposed to come in tomorrow. And I really hope they work. I find a lot of things like that do not usually work, and I have to find one magic one that is for some reason better, or like for some reason actually effective. Um, I have no idea that these ones will be. I was doing some crochet earlier. I just couldn't do it. That's the whole reason I ended up buying stuff today. Because it doesn't require so much of my wrist. I just want to not get tendonitis. As long as I can prevent tendonitis, it's fine. You know, I'm looking at the wheel right now, and I'm almost wondering if the issue is mostly the post that is connected to the footman. Right, you can't do that. Hang on. This post right here that's connected to this footman, because it's also wobbling like crazy with each rotation. And it almost looks like maybe it's a little bit too high. I don't know. I gotta take a look at that later. Because it is entirely possible that we assembled it wrong. I haven't taken it apart at any point since I assembled it. Well, my sister assembled it. I just sat there and made us tea because I I don't know how to assemble things. Whereas she puts together like bookshelves and stuff for fun. So, but yeah, it's possible we put it together wrong or didn't hammer it in all the way. It actually did not come with an instruction booklet. It came with a link to a video, which was not even for this type of wheel. So we just guessed. So it's quite possible that I did something wrong here. Looks like the two posts are identical, so I'm guessing it's not that we put the wrong one in the wrong spot. But like the post closest to me literally it doesn't move at all, and the post farther away from me, that's by the footman, is moving as much as the wheel is actually. I'm not gonna stop my stream to try and figure it out because I want to just spin right now. But I'll make a mental note to see if there's anything I can do to make it maybe like stop that from happening. It looks like it's a little bit higher, so I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I think maybe it's not hammered in all the way. Good to know. Like, I don't think that would cause huge problems, but I absolutely do think that it would sort of be an energy sink, because some of the energy I'm using is going into making the wheel and the post move around instead of actually turning the wheel and making my flyer move around. So it might be just a little bit easier on my knees. I will take all the help I can get in that regard. Anyway, I'm super, super excited that I got black so easily. Getting black with natural dye on wool, really fucking difficult. And it requires so many dye materials, and a lot of the time, to get it black, you'll also be harshing the wool pretty badly. Unless there's some sort of secret that I don't know about, but as far as I know, getting black on wool has been a problem for a very long time. So I don't think it's just me who has trouble with it. But I guess getting black on cotton is as simple as adding tannins and then adding a little bit of iron. So yeah, it's a nice black too, sort of like charcoaly. I didn't expose it anywhere near as much as I should have. It burned black, so I just immediately pulled it out. But I'm very excited because I really want to make a pair of cotton shorts thick enough that they're more or less wrinkle proof. Both reasons, unfortunately. And yeah, but I wasn't gonna wear white. Like white shorts, definitely not my thing. But black shorts, much more my thing. So that's actually like, but I had been sort of thinking, I'm gonna have to find some black cotton, blah blah blah. But I literally don't have it. So I'm super excited about that. And just getting to work with more like black and dark gray in general. I so rarely get to work with that. I know it's hard on your eyes, but still, it's fun. Hey, Zertra, nice to have you in. Might make the cotton feel bad too. It might, yeah. I did very little exposure. The thing with an iron mordant on wool, well, on anything, I assume, but specifically, I know about it on wool. The thing about an iron mordant is the more you expose the fiber to the iron, the more it will degrade and also harsh that fiber. Now with wool, you tend to need like about 10 minutes. It's going to vary wildly, but I found 10 minutes is typically when I start seeing a reaction. So 10 minutes is soaking in iron water. So that's like, you're going to get some harshing because 10 minutes alone is going to harsh the wool. But in this case, all I did was like I dipped it in and it turned black. So while that might harsh the cotton, like it might still do some damage, it would not do anywhere near as much damage because it doesn't need to sit in there as long. So I think it shouldn't be as much of a problem. Initially, I think most people do not have the same issues with scratchy cotton as they do with scratchy wool. And I'm pretty sure it's because wool is shorn, so the ends have been cut on pretty much everything except lamb fleeces. And even so, on lambs, they sometimes shear the stuff that was growing while it was still on its mom. So you're going to get cut ends, and those are going to kind of inherently be a little bit prickly if you're sensitive to that sort of thing. Whereas ginned cotton, at least, is not going to do that. Maybe cotton sliver would, or maybe like if they've cut it, I could see that might cause problems. But I mean, it's like shaving, you know. When you shave, and then the hair regrows, or if you shave and you didn't take off the hair down to the bare skin, then the hairs are super rough. Like they'll dull over time, but they start out super rough. I think it's kind of the same thing there. You sort of have fewer things working against you with cotton. Like, I don't think anyone's ever told me that they can't wear cotton because it makes them itch. But I hear that a lot with wool. Even when they don't have an allergy, they have sensitive skin, but not an allergy. Maybe skin sensitivity seems to extend to cotton, so maybe I just haven't heard it, and people do. I don't know. But yeah, I don't think it'll cause as much of a problem, if any. But we'll see. I'll definitely keep an eye out and try and compare it to some of my scoured stuff. And by the way, I think I finally figured out why my cotton was smelling super gross when it got wet. Let me drink a little. Right. I think I figured out why it was doing that. I lost my train of thought and I just remembered it. Okay. So I guess I knew this, but I wasn't thinking. All plants are going to have some bits of waxes and gums and things like that, just by virtue of being a plant. And when you get it wet, you sort of activate all of that stuff. It's not really something you'll notice when it's dry. So it's sort of like how when you wash linen, the first time, the water is disgusting. But then after you've gotten that stuff out, it doesn't do that anymore. I think it was the same thing with the cotton, because I scoured quite a bit of it today, and water was like brown, and the fleece was also sort of, or not fleece, the cotton was also sort of brown while it was in the pot, and then once I rinsed it all out, it was more or less white again. It's possible I accidentally dyed that first batch slightly because I didn't actually clean my dye pot out. My dye pot and my washing pot are one and the same at the moment. But anyway, I'm glad that it does not seem to have been chemicals. I think I guess it might have also been chemicals. I think it was just stuff that you would expect, and I simply had not spun enough cotton to really know. So yeah, and I scoured all of the washcloths that I made too, and I'm hoping that once they dry, they will no longer have that gross smell when they're wet. I'll update you guys on it. Like, they're kind of going to be terrible as washcloths if they smell wet, if they smell gross every time they get wet. So I'm really not. And that also might account for why the cotton sliver that I spun does not have that smell when wet. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if it's just the cotton before turning it into sliver, but if it's just been ginned, they're definitely not stripping it before sale, obviously. So that would kind of make sense. Now I am curious as to whether or not stripping the fibers is going to make it more difficult to spin. Because I feel like having the gums and the bits of extra stuff on there might improve like its sort of stickiness. The fact that the fibers will just slightly grab onto each other with cotton. So I'm hoping I haven't made it really difficult to work with. I didn't scour a whole lot of it, but I know that I know from experience, with flax, you have to turn it into yarn before you scour it, because if you try and scour it as fiber, that does not work. It does not work at all. Or like you can scour it, but then you can't turn it into yarn after, basically, because it's sort of just like, I don't even know how to describe it. It just becomes a big clump, and it doesn't really want to draft after that. And nothing I could try made it spinnable again, so I have to toss that stuff after. I only just remembered that. I didn't think about that when I was dyeing it. I mean, if nothing else, I can just use it as like batting or something. Like I wouldn't have to throw it away. But hopefully I can spin it that way. If it turns out I can't, then I will just have to. I will have learned a very valuable lesson, and I'll just not dye it until it's fiber or until it's yarn. We'll have to see. Have I ever dyed flax? Yes. Yes, but only once and not well, I guess. Flax is hard to dye. You've got a couple things working against you. One thing, if it is unbleached flax, which is what I strongly prefer to work with, because I find that bleached flax is a lot harder to spin. Like a lot harder to spin. So I like working with unbleached flax. But anytime you start out with something that is not white, you're going to have a harder time dyeing it. And what color you do achieve is more likely to be muddy, and it's more likely to simply make it a darker brown rather than actually change the color very much. So I've tried dyeing it multiple times, but only actually successfully dyed it once. And in that case, I still don't even know if dyeing is, I don't know, too kind of a word. What I did was I dyed the skein that I was going to use for the border of my hand spun flax summer blanket. I dyed that, I think, using Oregon grapes. And it's possible that a lot of the reason I didn't get much color was because the Oregon grapes didn't possibly 2 years. So I won't discount that. Maybe it's easier than I am making it out to be. But in my case, it basically just turned it a darker shade of brown. I was just glad that it turned it a darker shade of brown because a lot of times I've tried to dye flax and it didn't change color at all. Like it was identical. So it's difficult to get flax to accept color. I would hazard a guess that there are certain mordants that work well for flax. And I did not research that. I just, I probably just used the mordants that I use for wool. So that probably didn't help. But even so, you do find most people recommending that if you're going to dye flax, you need to figure out how to bleach it first, if you really want to get any decent colors at all. And even then, if you look at a lot of historical garments, you'll find that, like if they're made of flax, you'll find that all the decoration is in wool. And the reason for that is it's a lot easier to dye wool than it is to dye flax. So I think just that alone speaks to the fact of, you know, you can dye it, but it's hard. Wool is a whole lot easier. All of this is so interesting as someone who is new to plant fibers. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad it's interesting. I can never quite tell. I still, like, I feel like I'm new to plant fibers myself, if I'm being honest. Just because I feel like I have so much more experience with wool. And then anytime I try plant fibers, I just feel really out of my depth. But it's really nice to be learning more about them and sort of expanding my knowledge in that way. I would like to be able to get better at dyeing flax and cotton. I've dyed cotton before using wool methods and wool mordants, and you can do it. I think it's probably not as good as if you use cotton mordants and cotton methods. That's my guess. With wool methods on cotton, you tend to not get the color penetrating very far, even if you pre-soak it heavily. I don't really know why that is. I wonder if maybe the mordants don't penetrate very much or what, but every time I've tried dyeing cotton using wool methods, what has happened was that the very outer layer would be nicely colored, but then it would fade or change quite a lot over time, especially compared to the wool that I would also have in that same layer, which is a lot longer. In the stuff that I was doing today, it still didn't penetrate all the way, but it penetrated a lot further. Like, it's literally almost like an eggshell thickness of how far it would penetrate using wool methods. And in this case, that it was still sort of that eggshell thickness that was as dark, but it got lighter going in. So that makes me think must go a little farther. And also, there's certainly things I could have done to make it better. Even just with my limited knowledge, I know I could improve it quite a bit. This damn wheel, and it's squeaking. It pretty much only squeaks on stream. I want you all to know that. It does not do this normally. You're fascinated by plant fibers, but intimidated too. Today you went to forage nettles and tried to do something with the fibers, but you have no idea what that will give. Nettles are really fun. I hope that you enjoy them. I've only gotten to work with them once or twice, but they are awesome. I can definitely understand being intimidated by plant fibers. Like, I mean, I am too, but because they're so different from wool, you really are starting from scratch when you switch. And in a lot of cases, you're starting from scratch with each new plant fiber. Whereas one breed of wool, like one breed of sheep, is not going to be so different from the next that you have to totally reinvent what you're doing. Like they might be very different, but nonetheless, the principle is more or less still the same, which is not true of cotton or linen or anything else like that. I really like plant fibers. I feel like they're very fulfilling to work with, but I don't find them easy. I wonder how much of that is just because I have such a massive disparity in experience between my experience with plant fibers and with wool. Because it could be that, or it could just be like, you know, inherently one of them is somewhat harder for me. I could see that too. I feel like at this point, you know, as far in as I am with cotton and linen, when I was at that part with wool, I was a little bit more confident, and I'm making a little bit better yarn out of it. But it might just have a steeper learning curve than wool does. That wouldn't shock me. My wheel is camera shy. Yeah, I guess so. One thing that I'm both very excited about, but also very nervous about, with regards to cotton dyeing, is that typically I know more or less the range of colors that I can get on wool, and I know how the different mordants will affect them. But for one thing, cotton mordants are very different, and I still haven't figured out how those affect the finished color. I only just learned that the different kind of tannin you use can definitely affect it. So that's good to know. But like, I don't know, I'm gonna have to learn a whole different set of rules for all the dye materials that I use just for cotton. And I'm a little worried that I won't remember that. Like I won't remember that there's two different processes and two different sets of results and that sort of thing. Because that sounds exactly like a mistake I would make repeatedly and to disastrous effect. We'll have to see. I hope not. And I'm also kind of considering maybe pre-mordanting, probably just with alum because that's the easiest, but pre-mordanting a bunch of my remaining wool, my remaining undyed white wool, and sort of tossing some in the dye bath alongside, and just seeing what happens, like what color I get from one versus the other. I think having a direct comparison like that would probably be helpful, like in terms of drawing conclusions, finding patterns and stuff like that. Like if I notice that the cotton always turns out 1 or 2 shades lighter than the wool, that would be a good thing to know, because I tend to add in dye material, or well, it's more like I adjust the amount of fiber I put in rather than adjust the amount of dye I use. Because with natural dyes, you use what you have. It's rare that you'll have extra, unless you're working with a super abundant dye material that is really easy to prepare. But yeah, that would let me know. Maybe put in even less cotton than you think. That sort of thing. But it'll be fun to learn just the ways that that works. Yeah, I'm not super impressed with my spinning on these Rolex. Like pretty much all of it will be great. Sorry, with my carving on these Rolex, not my spinning. Pretty much all of the Rolex will be great, and then I'll reach one section where it's like the lock just was never opened. And having realized that I'm apparently filling my hand cards all the way to the edges when I'm working with wool, that makes me think that like all those little almost fully intact locks in a sea of otherwise perfectly prepared fiber is just locks that, you know, migrated to the sides and I tossed them back in, but they never had a chance to actually get opened. Now that I've realized this, I think from here on, I'm going to see if leaving a buffer on the wool cards too helps. What confuses me is how I knew to do that with cotton, because I was very aware that I needed to do that with cotton, which I guess had made me assume that that's what I do with wool, but I literally don't do that with wool. So why did I know to do that? I'm not sure. These are exactly the sorts of questions that you would ask yourself if you also have memory disorder. I guess it helps keep life interesting though, right? This stuff is also kind of dusty. I'd forgotten, because, you know, I'd done so much cotton recently and the cotton was decidedly not dusty. I had forgotten what it feels like to have bits of dust in your hands while you're spinning. I forget things really quickly, as you might be able to guess. You always leave a buffer, but you're not an expert. I'm definitely not an expert either. Did you start leaving a buffer from experience because not leaving one was kind of burning you, or did somebody tell you to leave a buffer, or did you just always know to do that? I'm curious. What's a buffer? So when I'm loading up my cards on wool cards, what I had been doing was covering the entire thing from one side of the teeth to the other side of the teeth. But then with cotton, what I was doing was I was covering most of it, but I was leaving about an inch or so on either side with nothing on it. And so all of my cotton was concentrated in the middle. And as I carded, it would still migrate outwards, but if you leave a big enough buffer, it won't actually reach the end. And the reason you really got to do that with cotton is because if you have stuff like sort of going this way off the end, when you try and roll it into a puni, it's going to be a nightmare. You're not going to have any way to capture those ones on the ends, and it's going to mess your entire prep up. So that's what I mean by buffer in this situation. You noticed it moved out to the edges as you carded, and that was causing problems. So you stopped putting it on the edges so you had room to move. Well, that shows more common sense than I was using. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly my experience with it too. I guess I just was like, well, I don't know. I think I probably went I usually went a little lighter on the edges and I put the bulk of it in the center, but I didn't ever just keep it fully clean. I think I should have. So I'm curious, if these 14 Rolex are not enough to get me all the way there to have enough material to apply, And then we'll be able to do a side-by-side comparison and see if I still get whole locks in the middle of my prep. But certainly going on, I'm gonna implement that. The only issue is my hand cards are so much smaller and specifically so much less wide that I will be sacrificing a pretty significant amount of the space to a buffer, but I don't know, like, I don't think that's, I feel like that sort of evens out in terms of effort because I don't have to struggle through uncombed locks and I don't have to be constantly picking off pieces and putting them back on the cards. So, yeah. I had my fan pointed at the floor where all of my cotton was drying, and I moved my cotton into the oven with the light on, but without the oven going, because that still will raise the temperature quite a lot. But then I forgot to put my fan back up at its usual orientation, and I was like, why is it so horribly hot over here? That's why it's pointing at the floor. I might have to get up and change it, but hopefully not. I've got a cold drink, so that should help. I'm still going through my 6 gallons of coconut water. I was wondering if I might get sick of it before I finished it all. I mean, I haven't finished it yet, so that still remains to be seen. I feel like the complexity of the flavor is no longer something I notice, which is a little too bad because I really like that, but it still tastes good. So. I know, it was very dumb of me. All I had to do was just nudge it up slightly, but now it's on the other side of the room. I really don't want to get up again. I already didn't want to get up to make my spinning wheel usable. Getting up twice in a row is probably not happening right now. Although, Chuck is back in the spot that she was in yesterday, which is on top of the computer chair, staring at me. I would angle the screen, like the webcam, towards her, but that would also angle the screen towards her and away from me, and I already have some trouble reading chat as it is, so sadly not doable. I've always wanted to try coconut water. If it's something you can find, or if coconuts are something you can find where you live, I highly recommend. It's very good. And it's got quite a few vitamins in it and everything, so it's pretty good for you. It doesn't have a lot of sugar. I personally am pretty sensitive to sugar. It causes migraines. And it turns out that like pretty much all the drinks that I like either have sugar or have some kind of fake sugar, and both of those are a migraine trigger for me. Coconut water has a little bit of sugar, but it's got so much water and so little sugar that for the most part, it doesn't seem to, like, I feel like it helps my migraines rather than makes them worse. So if you can't find coconut water and you can only find coconuts though, you can drain the water out of the coconut. And especially if you can find a young one that still has like a green outside, the coconut water will be even better. If you ever want to try that. That's something you want in your drinks. Water? Yeah, ideally. I had been drinking sugar-free Gatorade for a while because, like, my thoughts were it's, you know, it has electrolytes and everything, so that should help, and it doesn't have sugar, so that should help. But the fake sugar actually makes my migraines way worse, and I suffered for a couple of months before I put that together. And when I switched to just straight water, I felt so much better. It's not that I don't like water. I do really like water. It's just for some reason that I have never been able to figure out. It requires so much more executive function for me to get up and get a glass of water than it does for me to get up, grab a bottle, bring the bottle with me, and then at some point later open it. I don't know why, but like I'll drink bottled water and canned water very easily, but then drinking a cup of water is just like I will often just sit there being super thirsty, wanting to get water, not being able to get water if that's my only option. So I kind of have to have something else around or I become really dehydrated because my brain is a bit foolish. Oh, you meant no migraines, but the water too. Yeah. Yeah, that too. You have 2 water bottles because getting the second bottle is easier than refilling the first one, so I get that. That's a good idea. I might have to try that. I have yet to find a reusable water bottle that is like a long-term solution for me, but if I do, I will absolutely buy 2 of them. Because refilling the reusable water bottles is also like that's the exact same problem. It's the filling it up that's an issue for me. So yeah, I love that idea. Thank you. Find one that works for me. You don't like water, it's a struggle to make yourself drink it. My sister's like that. So I get that. It's one of those things where like people will assign morality to it and it's so stupid. Like obviously everybody would like to be adequately hydrated in an easy manner. Like that's a normal basic human function. Everybody is going for that. So not being able to drink water or really struggling to drink water for any reason really only makes it harder for yourself. And yet it's always other people who will complain about it as if it's causing them problems. I forgot that. My sister compensates by drinking a lot of tea and more so, I think, by eating a lot of soup or vegetables or other things that just already have a lot of water in them. And so she's definitely chronically dehydrated. You like water, but your girlfriend has issues with it unless it's sparkling. She calls yours boring water. I do have an easier time drinking sparkling water, but I think that's solely because it comes in a can or a bottle, thus eliminating the executive function issues of trying to fill it. I like the taste of sparkling water. Not La Croix specifically, because that's one of the more expensive brands here, but I really like the canned zero sugar sparkling water that just has like a vague flavor to it. I don't know why. And I really love those. The only problem is they're just incredibly fucking expensive. And they're also really small. Like the same price for a 12-ounce can as for a 1 liter 1 liter Tetra Pak. So, yeah, I can afford to have a 1 liter Tetra Pak every day, but I can't afford to have that same amount of water in cans. For now, anyway. for a while you had to have drinks with salt in it because of meds. That was even harder. God, I can imagine that doesn't sound pleasant. But you're dehydrated a lot because water just tastes so bitter. That sucks. I find that as long as I can put ice in my water, I typically don't notice or care about the taste unless it's like well water with a lot of minerals in there, and then I can't really feel the taste. Thankfully, the taste is not an additional barrier for me. It's so odd that, like, I don't know. I think some people, especially healthy people, who don't have any kind of chronic conditions, really take food and water for granted. Like it's like, of course, you will have enough sustenance and hydration to live, no problem. But then, like, actually, it can be a whole fucking thing, a whole huge issue. And so many people will just won't even cross their mind that, like, you haven't even eaten all day because you can't eat at the moment, or like whatever. Like, people just take that for granted a little bit. I mean, and they should. I'm glad that they can. I just wish everybody could, I guess. Sorry if you can hear that. My cat is currently ripping the chair that she's sitting on to shreds. I don't know how loud it is for you. It's a cheap chair, so I don't really give a shit, but hopefully it's not too loud. Yeah. And I mean, that's just like chronic health issues, like things like autism or other neurodivergencies will also do that too. In my sister's case, I'm pretty sure her water issues are purely autism. Because for her, she says the thing that makes it really hard to drink a lot, and especially a lot of water, is that she can feel it sloshing around in her stomach, and it makes her incredibly nauseous. Which feels, given that she's also autistic, as am I, that feels like that's probably the reason why. Yeah, I don't know. I went from having a couple of allergies, but nothing that really impacted my quality of life as a kid, to so many food allergies that I struggle to eat enough to not pass out, which is really like, man, I was really taking that for granted as a kid, I guess. Because wow, it is a lot harder now. You dislike the sloshing too. It's rough. I feel like I don't know, I can barely even tell when I'm hungry or when I'm full. Pretty much the only non-random stomach pain sensations that I have in my stomach are if I'm like painfully full. Like, I just don't have the awareness of my stomach to even know. The allergies suck. I feel lucky that yours are mild. Yeah, I mean, even mild allergies can, like, if nothing else, be a pretty massive buzzkill. Mine are all fairly mild too. It's just that I have so many of them that at this point, like, the number of food items I can consume is getting slimmer by the day. And that's the issue I'm having. Like, none of the foods that I could eat, or rather, none of the foods that I'm allergic to are liable to send me into anaphylactic shock or even cause something worse than a stomach ache. But when all the foods that you have available to you cause stomach aches, that piles up really fast. And constantly eating things you're allergic to is just really not good for you for a number of reasons and in a number of ways. So like sometimes the only food I have available to me is food that I am allergic to, so I just have to eat very little of it because that's kind of better than eating nothing, but also better than eating enough, if that makes sense. That's not to mention the dodgy jaw that likes to dislocate. I'll mention that though, actually. That one's never a fun time. For some reason, coconut, like I am definitely allergic to coconut fat. Like something about coconut cream, for example, or even just coconut chips. Incredibly nauseating. But coconut water really doesn't have any fat in it. Thankfully, coconut water is fine. Very thankfully, because it's delicious. You get hungry, but you have to work on that. You still tend to realize suddenly and urgently that you have to eat. Yeah. If I ever get hungry, it's always a sudden and urgent. Yeah, I get what you mean. You end up snacking to be able to cook and stuff like that. That makes sense. Snacking is the reasonable way to deal with that. I just don't remember to snack. And then I have to find snacks. That's so much effort. I'm so lazy. Food allergies suck, yeah. Walnut is easy to avoid, but celery is in so many things and often just says natural flavoring. Oh, yeah, that sucks. The ones that are like ubiquitous and unlabeled is just, oh. I'm very lucky to not have any, but I have a couple friends who do, and it's like, God, that it already sucks enough to be allergic to something. Why does it also have to be hiding in like most foods? Like, why? It just seems like natural flavoring as a classification of ingredients should not be allowed. You should have to actually state, you know. I'm guessing whoever was in charge of that one did not have allergies to natural ingredients. Yeah, celery salt alone is a pretty common seasoning. You agree, obviously. Yeah. I can't tell if it's going a little bit. Oh yeah, it's already been an hour. Okay. I was thinking this is going faster than last time, but I thought it had been like 15 to 20 minutes, not an hour. So it's actually going slightly slow. If you heard that, by the way, that was my cat yelling at a crow again. It's one of her hobbies. There's really almost no VM in this. Like it's crazy. I've picked out every single piece of VM so far that I've found, and there's been like 5 maybe, in stark contrast to all of the debris everywhere in the cotton. I just keep expecting there to be like VM with each draft almost. But thankfully not. You tell them. Yeah, you tell them. I don't even know if she dislikes the crows, or if she's just, she just got stuff to say. It's never clear. She's not obvious when she hates things most of the time. So, like, I've known some cats who they make it very well known that they are displeased and that they dislike you specifically. Chuck is not one of those cats, though. Time blindness strikes again. I feel like it just struck just like a few minutes ago. So, yeah, for real though. It's always the time blindness. I actually might not need much more on this bobbin to get it about on par with the first one. I'll have to hold them up side by side to check, but just from what I'm looking at, it looks like, at least on this part, I'm already bobbing, so that's cool. You're so bad at that, you can never tell if you have the same amount on both bobbins. I don't know where I am on that. I feel like visually, if I hold them side by side, I can tell, but because of like what matters is that the yardage is the same, more than the volume or anything like that. It's purely the yardage. And like, I never know if it's the same because like maybe there's less yardage, but at points it was thicker and that could artificially make it look like it's the same. Or maybe there's less yardage, but you didn't wind it. Like you didn't have as tight of tension on the take up when you were doing it. And so that could artificially make it look different. So I'm just like so aware that yardage is only one factor dictating how much it looks like there is on there. And so due to that, I'm like, even if I were to take out a measuring tape, I would not trust it. Like there's really nothing that you can do to ensure that it has the exact same amount on both bobbins. Even if you were to weigh your fiber and then try really hard to spin them exactly the same, as long as one part has a couple thin spots, or one bobbin's worth has a couple thin spots and the other bobbin's worth has a couple thick spots, you may well have already lost like a yard right there. So you're just never ever going to get it even. And so due to that, I don't try that hard. Like, I don't know. It is what it is. I will undoubtedly end up having to juggle a little bit of flying bracelet action at the end, no matter what. So, like, if it's close, that's good enough. But even close could be way off due to those other factors I talked about, and I wouldn't know. So, I don't know. It looks like what it looks like. It's the definition of overthinking, I'm sure. The problem is the only alternative to overthinking is underthinking, and that sounds like an even worse idea. That's my stance on it. This particular roll lag is pretty bad. Not sure why. It's one of my last ones, I think. It's got a little bit of yellow on the end, and I recognize it. So I think, like, I know it was one of the last ones I did, and I wonder if maybe I was just rushing like crazy by the end. But I don't think I was, because it's not like my alarm had gone off. I had plenty of time. My hands are just getting tired. I don't know. So I was doing a whole bunch of, I guess, research, although I don't know if research is necessarily the right word. But I was looking up natural dyes this afternoon after a somewhat vexing series of asks. And oh my God, there's so much misinformation now, and that's like the main stuff that comes up, which is really unfortunate because, like, when I was looking this stuff up, I don't know, like less than 10 years ago, it was hit or miss, sure, but it was more like it was hit or miss the color that you'd get. It wasn't just blatant misinformation everywhere. And now it kind of is. Like, lots and lots of just claims that XYZ is fugitive or XYZ is a stain, not a dye. And it's like, well, I've literally died with that, and it stayed and it was successful. So that's not true. So I'm taking a guess that unfortunately AI has finally infiltrated its way into the dyeing community. If you're ever trying to figure out or research stuff about dyes, pro tip: if you're using Google, you can pick the date range for the articles and pages that you access, and I would maybe put the cutoff for right before ChatGPT became a thing, because I think that's like the only way to get, non-AI generated nonsense. It's unfortunate. I'm really hoping they don't also make their way into spinning. I feel like spinning is very niche. Like, natural dyeing is niche too, but it's people have been like dyeing Easter eggs and stuff with natural dyes for quite a long time. So it's not quite as unknown as spinning is in the Western world. So I'm hoping they'll keep their filthy AI hands off our spinning reels, but unfortunately, you never know. Oh yeah, I said the exact same thing. Yeah, indeed, that's the. On Google, you go to, I think it's advanced settings. I don't totally remember, but you probably Google how to do it as well. Yeah. When you use, oh, hang on. Let me scroll up a tiny bit more. You could think that the right amount, but you think if I'm already considering what that is, I'm already overthinking. Yeah, it's layers of overthinking at that point. And then a possibly stupid dye question. No such thing. All dye questions are good questions. When you use an aggressive mordant like iron, how do you discard it? That is a very good question. It depends. So any sort of aggressive or just like flat out dangerous, such as chromium is flat out dangerous, any mordant like that, um, most likely what you will need to do is put it in a plastic container with a lid and then look up the local regulations for how to dispose of hazardous liquids in your area, because it is going to depend. Sometimes just city to city, it's going to depend. With iron, I don't know. Iron, it sort of depends. I know for a fact that I have improperly disposed of it before, and I'm not really proud of that fact, but also I could not find a legal way to dispose of it. For that reason, I very rarely use iron. In this particular case, because I was using a very, very, very tiny amount, I tipped it down the sink. You should not do that. Not recommend doing that. I shouldn't have done it. I probably will do it again, but I shouldn't. Yeah, so looking up your local regulations is at least the best starting place. The problem is sometimes what they recommend is going to be outright impossible for you for one reason or another. In my case, it's impossible because I have to bring it to a specific dumping ground that is only open when I'm at work. And there are no buses that go there. So it's like, I would have to go well out of my way. So my solution to that has been to drastically cut down on iron usage and dilute it as much as I can before tipping it in the sink. When I didn't live in an apartment building, I would dilute it as much as I could and then pour it on the mulch pile, which probably wasn't great either, but considering that there is a literal tire fire in my city that's been going on for, since before COVID started, I don't think I'm the main polluter here. Just not proud of the pollution that I have done. But yeah, it's definitely not a stupid question, just also not an easy one to answer. But yeah, always start with looking up the local regulations. Some of them, thankfully, can just be tipped down the sink, like alum, at least if I remember correctly, which I hope I do. Alum, you can dilute it a bit and tip it down the sink. But yeah, there are very few mordants that are actually like environmentally friendly, you know? Tannins are probably the only ones, and even so, adding a whole bunch of tannins to soil is not going to help that soil at all. So, yeah, I don't know. As long as no influencer gets on spinning, we're safe, I guess. I don't know. Bernadette Banner, I think that's her name. I'm pretty sure that's her name, has already forayed into spinning. And I think she has quite a lot of YouTube influence, so I think it's kind of already happening. But also, like, spinning is, like, it's so slow, and it's only rewarding if you actually care about what you're doing. And it's got such a high learning curve, so due to all those things, I think it's a lot less likely to be destroyed in the way that, you know, other things like natural dyes. There's a high learning curve, but getting the materials is not very hard. Getting the tools is very hard, and you can do it on like a t-shirt from Goodwill, so it's not really the case with spinning. So hopefully we're safe for a little while longer. Who knows? You can check on your city's legislations. You know, you can access the dump by public transportation because you had a swollen battery thing once. Oh, geez. Well, that's good. I feel like it's insane that a public dump would not be accessible by public transportation, like ours isn't, but yeah, I'm glad yours is. So far, you just used citric acid or baking soda since you use them both for other things that end up in the sink. You think they're fine. Yeah. If you use it in the kitchen, like as a cooking thing in any way, it's fine. It's fine to tip that down the sink. With citric acid, you might want to dilute it a tiny bit because it is acid, but I mean, presumably you are putting it in water, which is diluting it. So just in the dye bath is probably enough dilution. And the nice thing about using edible or food safe, however the case may be, materials is that you don't have to use dedicated dye pots for that either. You can just use your normal cooking pots because it's not going to do anything bad to them. But as soon as you start moving on to more chemical stuff, you will need to get a dedicated set of dye pots if you don't have them already. I'm glad that annoyed you too. That was my main gripe as well. She started off trying to spin linen thread. Felt so ridiculous. Yeah, I haven't watched it, but I heard people talk about it, and I do follow her, or did. I might not anymore, because I liked her sewing stuff. I thought it was pretty interesting. But like, come on, are you kidding me? I just feel like when you have a platform like what she has, you have a little bit of a responsibility to not like do things in such a stupid way that you give everybody a completely flawed set of expectations. Like, why would you learn to spin that first? Why? Like, what do you gain from it? What the fuck's the point? Just learn on wool like everyone else, and that would be perfectly respectable. But like, instead, you're going to learn on thread or on flax thread, make other people think they can learn on flax thread, and then waste like a whole bunch of your followers' money and time, and probably make a lot of them swear off spinning as a whole because the thread thing didn't work out. But it's like, you know, they might have at one point gone and tried wool if you hadn't started it that way. I don't know. It's a stupid gripe, I know, but it's a gripe I have nonetheless. It makes me a lot. It's crazy mine isn't accessible by public transportation. I know. So many things aren't here. Like, we have a robust transportation system in that there are a lot of buses. They just don't fucking go anywhere helpful. And there's a lot of dead areas, dead zones where if you're in that area, it's going to be a hell of a time getting out of it because there just isn't any buses or trains running through there. And there's a lot of them and they're big. That's frustrating. Especially on someone who 100% relies on public transportation at this point, because obviously my power chair does not go in a car. Obviously is the wrong word. There are some portable power chairs that do go in cars, but mine is not portable and does not go in a car. I don't have a car. Also, I can't drive anymore. So, yeah. Like, one of my favorite places to hang out, especially at night, because you get a whole view of the city and it's usually like empty and it's really beautiful up there. It is not at all accessible by bus, so I kind of just can never go there again, even though it's literally still in the city where I live. It sucks. I'm sure I'll get over it, but it sucks. Who learns thread first? I know. I think it was because she didn't knit or crochet, and thread's the thing she uses, but still. I mean, I think that's just like, it doesn't matter, you know? Like, you don't necessarily learn to spin the thing you're going to use. You need, like, learning to spin and then learning to spin something specific are two different things. You know, like, you need to learn to spin first and then go on and try and do your specific things. Especially in front of an audience. I don't know. I really wasn't impressed by it. And it's like that Elon Musk tweet. That's like, what is it? Everybody said that he was a space genius, so I believed them. Everybody said that he was a car genius, so I believed them. But now I've seen him talking about coding, and I know coding, and everything he's saying is totally fucking wrong and stupid. So I realize he's none of those things. It's that kind of thing. I'm like, hang on, now that you've entered into the foray of things I actually do know about, I'm kind of wondering if you have expertise in anything, because that was so unimpressive. That was so foolish. Like, are you good at sewing too? I don't know much about sewing, so I can't really judge that, but yeah, I don't know. That said, I think sometimes I can overestimate the amount of influence and harm that somebody is capable of. So it's probably nowhere near as big of a deal as I sometimes feel like it is. But I certainly did find it annoying. She's good at sewing for herself. We've seen complaints about her patterns. I mean, I can definitely understand that having scoliosis would lead you to sort of, you'd have to become good at making patterns for yourself if you wanted them to fit correctly. But also, I can understand how perhaps your patterns for other people would kind of still be made for people with scoliosis, even unintentionally. I don't have scoliosis, but I do have conditions that make me have to like alter my clothes so that they fit. So I kind of understand that. There's complaints about everything. That's true. That's very true. I think that once I finish this roll lag, I'm gonna check. Okay, it is on that. I'm gonna check and see if it looks about equivalent to my other one. But the thing is that the first one that I did from the bat is pretty squishy. So I guess I have been keeping the take up tension lower, and this is harder, and it seems to be roughly the same size. So I think I may have already overshot how much I need, quite possibly. But I don't know. I might as well just finish it. And probably what will happen is I'll end up with like a chain plied end of the longest single. Usually what I end up doing when I'm doing traditional 3-ply. So it won't like match all the way through, but I honestly almost like that as an intentional, like a design choice, because then you can use that for the cast on edge, and you know, depending on how long it is, obviously, but you can use it for the cast on edge, and it will sort of add a little extra bit of dimension to it because it's in colors that match perfectly, and it's the same size and everything for the most part, but it's not variegated. So, and especially if you end up with a lot of that, you can get a really nice clean ribbing at the bottom. I've made a few hats that way. I was really happy with that result. So it's not something that I avoid doing, basically. I've been learning to sew. It's so hard. I think your knowledge about making knitting patterns fit should help, but it has not so far. Yeah, I know what you mean. I think like I always fall into the trap of thinking about it the way that I think about knitting, which is that knitting is stretchy. And Unless you're exclusively working on the bias, which I never am because it's not like I can afford huge ass bolts of cloth. It's not stretchy at all, and there's just so much less room for error. And the clothes that I've made have tended to not fit at all. It's definitely a challenge. I hadn't considered doing that, but you don't spin 3-ply so much. Yeah, it doesn't. It's the kind of thing that doesn't really matter unless you do spin a lot of 3-ply. And specifically, like with situations like this, is where it matters, where one of my plies is going to be variegated and the other two are going to be fairly solid colors. And so there will be visually, like there'll be a difference, but knowing how to use that difference to, get some desired effect is, like, it's not too difficult, which is nice. How many plies do you usually spin, out of curiosity? I think I started out mostly doing 2 plies, but I also started out spinning much thicker singles, as everyone does. And as my singles got thinner, the weight of yarn that I wanted to use kind of stayed more or less the same. So I started doing 3-ply so that my yarn would still be thick enough to use. But I don't really prefer, like, I just like the way that 2-ply looks, especially when it's knit up. It's got such a good textured look to it. I really do prefer that. That look to 3-ply, which is a lot smoother, a lot more professional looking. It's not really what I'm going for. You do 2-ply, nice. Yeah, I think I just have difficulty working with thinner yarns. And now I've gotten to the point where if I'm spinning wool and I spin a 2-ply, it's going to be fingering weight, if not or it's going to be lace weight, if not thinner. And I just have no use for large amounts of lace weight wool yarn, so I had to switch it up. Sometimes I'll do I call it a laid 4-ply, which is not in any way the correct term. I just don't know if there is a term for it, or if so, what that term is. But sometimes I'll do that just to get it even better, like even thicker. Like I was kind of considering making this a 4-ply, but I think I can get away with the fingering weight 3-ply, and I will use the fingering weight yarn. So mostly wool, mostly for sweaters, and mostly like a sport weight. Oh, nice. Sport weight's good. Zertra almost exclusively does 2-ply, but your current singles are pretty fine, so they'll get in 3-ply. It's interesting that you have the same thought process behind it as I do. Just that it's like adjusting the number of plies to adjust the weight of the yarn rather than the thickness of the singles. But I mean, it really is so much easier to adjust the number of plies than it is to adjust the weight of the singles sometimes. I feel like I can spin a thick yarn if I focus really hard on it. It's just that my spinning time does not coincide with my focusing really hard time. I don't want to have to be thinking about it like all that much. So like I could, but I'm not going to. And even so, even when I do, it is still kind of, it feels like it's worse quality than if I had simply done a 3 or a 4-ply, just because I'm not so good at spinning thick singles anymore. So I don't know. It's always funny talking to newbies who are really envious of our fine yarn. And they're so shocked when it's like, well, I'm fucking envious of your 2-ply bulky weight, dude. Like, the grass is greener on the other side, no matter what. I know a couple of spinners who can just pick the weight that they want to spin their singles and it works fine. I don't know how, though. I would desperately love to know their secrets. But for me, it's like the fiber itself is mostly, the fiber and the prep is mostly what dictates how thick my yarn ends up, or my singles anyway. And then also my technique over the years has led it to be thinner and thinner, so I don't have a ton of control over that either. We've done 3-ply for socks and to get a worsted weight yarn, but the sock spins are pretty rough on your finger joints. Yeah, that's fair. There are definitely quite a few styles of spinning that I've had to completely eschew because like it's just too hard on my hands. It's not worth it. So I get what you mean. Sport weights hurts. Oh, you can spin 2 weights really fine, or your default where the 2-ply is sport weight. Sport weight hurts less. That's interesting. 2 defaults is a pretty cool trick. I have 1 default, kind of. I don't even know if it is a default because it just gets thinner and thinner over time, like always. Try to alternate fine singles with thick singles to not lose practice, but mostly the wool makes the decision. That's an interesting idea. Has it, like, do you feel like alternating like that has helped in still being able to spin thicker wools? Curious. You can still produce thick yarn, but you're also much more a beginner than either of us are. Oh, fair enough. Yeah, I found for me anyway, I'm sure this varies depending on the person, but I found that, like, every time I would get comfortable spinning, it would just start to go thinner. So I got comfortable at first spinning a bulky 2-ply. Once I got comfortable with that, then my spinning like sort of turned into a bad worsted weight 2-ply. And then once I had a good worsted weight 2-ply, it sort of turned into a good or a bad worsted weight, bad sport weight 2-ply. And so like I just sort of got thinner and thinner yarn over time. Every time I got comfortable with what I was doing, it would just get thinner. But it took me like, I think it took me maybe 3 years of serious spinning to get to the point where I really struggled to spin anything thick. And I'm pretty pleased with myself that I am able to spin that cotton as thick as I have, because I didn't actually think I'd be able to. I really thought that I'd have to do a 4-ply, but the fact that I can get a bulky with a 3-ply is pretty good for me. So clearly not all the cookies get lost. Also, I keep forgetting about this and then remembering randomly, but I have a small amount of dog hair that my coworker wants me to spin. And I do actually think it's spinnable. It's this black fiber from, I've never met the animal, but from apparently a very lovely dog named Maisie. And I promised my coworker I would spin it a while ago. I still haven't. So I think I might just like quickly do that before we start on the cotton. And I might do it on stream because, why not? It's not a husky. I know huskies and other dogs that have pretty thick undercoats tend to be the ones that are spinnable, but apparently Maisie has a really thick undercoat too. She's just a lap dog though. And it feels spinnable. You can still produce thick yarn, but you're also much. Oh wait, no, I already read that. Is that all my Rolex? No. No, but I think it is more than half of them though, so I'm definitely gonna have to make some more. I have 4 Rolags left, and I'm pretty sure. Let me pull it off, but I'm pretty sure that we can call this bobbin done. Now keep in mind that the darker one is definitely more tightly packed. So even though it looks like it's a little bit less, I think we're at the same yardage here, or similar. And I really like how they look together too. I think this is going to be a super pretty yarn. Oh, I had a question for you guys. I will probably have to post this, like post pictures of it on Tumblr so you can actually see the colors. But put that there for a second. So I have 2 different colors of this wool. I might have actually already asked. I don't know. I have this like light acid green, and I have the dark stuff. The dark stuff is what I just spun a bobbin of. I'm not sure if I should do both bobbins with the dark stuff and then have this much lighter ply be sort of an accent to it, or if I should do one dark, one light, and then, the variegated bat one. I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts? I'm just not sure. We have a little bit more time, so I think I'm gonna at least get started on the last bobbin. Possibly, although it's unlikely, but possibly spin those 4 bobbins. You don't trust the colors, yeah. That's good instinct. You think you'd probably do 2 dark ones, but either way it'll look okay. Apply them together, but maybe seeing them in different light would change your mind. Where's my phone? I could just take a picture really quick. I don't know if either of you would want to check Tumblr real quick. No worries if not, but I'm so indecisive about this, and yeah, I don't know. I am also thinking I already have 4 of the dark ones remaining, so maybe I should just do the dark ones anyway. I think that is what I'll do, just because it's easier. Never mind. Sorry, guys. A waste of time. Sorry. But I think it'll be like either way, I think it would look really nice. And I could always switch halfway through. I don't know. Since I have no plans for this, it's a little harder to try and think of effects. Like when you're doing a hat or something, it's great to have a split in the middle. Like if I did um, four dark ones and then four light ones for a hat, that would look really cool. Whereas for something like mittens, you definitely don't want that because then the mittens are just going to straight up be different colors if you do that. So, but since I don't know what it is, I can't really make that decision. And there's a decent chance that I'll just end up selling this also. That is what I have done with a lot of my finer yarns. Sorry for the pointless redirect. But yeah, we'll get at least a little bit more of this going. I think what's really gonna decide what I make with this, if anything, is one, how much it blooms, and two, how much yardage I get. I think if I get under 200 yards, it's going to be really hard to think of anything to make with this. If I get over 200 yards, I could probably do a decent shawl or something. I'm just not a shawl person. That's the problem. There's kind of no good reason to wear a shawl and you're in a wheelchair that has a very high back. Like nobody would ever see it ever. So there's not really any point to that. And I don't really know anyone who wears shawls either, so it's not something I'm likely to make for a gift. Oh, actually, I need to do that. I've got, oh, hi, Chuck. Got at least 15 minutes left on the stream. To be honest, I popped an edible not that long ago. And they take me a good 45 minutes most of the time to kick in, so it's also possible that I'll just keep going until I'm starting to feel, rather done. So we'll see. Definitely, like, since I fixed the footman, my ankle does not hurt anywhere near as much. So, yeah, I think that was actually causing some serious problems for me. And I'm really glad it's no longer the case. Now I just need to figure out what the fuck is making the wheel wobble and see if I can fix that. Because I bet this would be a much easier machine to use if I can get that done too. Understanding. I will say Chuck does not understand. Chuck is full of love. It's like, why have you not given me dinner? And by giving her dinner, what she means is, why did you not replace my totally full bowl of food with a different, also full bowl of food? That's what she wants when she does this sort of thing. Like, she has food. She just wants me to put it in the bag and then take out new food. I will indulge her to an extent, but I'm not going to go out of my way to do it because we both know it's ridiculous. And I'm baffled. The more I look at it, the more it's like it's really not right here. And I'm almost worried that it's multiple things, because it'll be a lot harder to fix if there are actually multiple issues. I don't know. But here's a question. Do you guys wanna, or like, are you more interested in me just spinning, or would you also be interested in if I were to card the other Rolex on stream that I'm gonna need? Because it looks like the weather will be pretty nice tomorrow, so I could certainly go out sometime tomorrow before streaming and card up the other Rolex that I'll need. But I could also do it on stream. But I would only do that if you thought it would be at least as entertaining as it usually is. Like, I think it's a little bit different for cotton because most people haven't carded cotton, but carding wool is a little bit more common, you know. Down for Rolex too, getting out whatever is going on. Cool. All right, then that sounds good. I'm gonna have to go to the store, so I'm gonna be outside anyway. So I'll get my outside time going to the store because I don't want to take the bus. So cool, I will do them on stream. Thank you, I appreciate this. Kind words also. Plus, I think if I do it on stream, hopefully that way I'll remember to leave a barrier, or whatever I was calling that, on the wool cards. I have a feeling that if I just go sit in my usual wool carding alleyway and do these, I probably will not remember that. And I really want to try it and see if I get a better price. So, to be honest, like, my Rolex prep has never been that good. And so that's one of the reasons why I've never really sold my Rolex. The few that I have sold have been from blending boards, which they have different pitfalls. So, yeah, so they've always been like slightly lumpy like this, and I just I always chalked it down to not doing as many passes as I needed to do. But now I'm wondering if it's solely because I haven't been leaving myself a little bit of a barrier. Like, it's entirely possible. It could be both also. But I usually go until it's smooth. Like 2 passes is enough to get it smooth most of the time. I usually do 2 passes. If it's not smooth, I'll do a third. It's just, there'll always be random hidden locks in there. The deflute sun. Accurate. The no flute sun. So I decided to go go back to my crafting group at work. And I think just distance myself a tiny bit. But I don't know. I was trying to figure out how to sort of like bow out of it in a way that wouldn't cause drama or hurt anybody's feelings, and I literally could not figure out how to do so. And after spending a week thinking about it, I was like, as long as I just don't get invested, I can still enjoy my hang out with other people and knit time. So, I think that's still a net win. And like doing this streaming has made me realize that, I don't know, it really is just so much more enjoyable for, like, at least for me specifically, to craft while talking to other people. There's just something about it that makes it a lot better. So, even if I kind of got my feelings hurt in my work group, like, I can probably still enjoy it. I don't usually get my feelings hurt. Like, I tend to keep myself at enough of a distance that I'm simply not invested in most interpersonal things. But not that time, I guess. Kind of embarrassing, really. Watch a lot of crafting streams just for company, even if you don't interact. Yeah. I did a lot of that too, and like I stopped as soon as I got an in-person crafting group. And then I went back to it when I didn't have one. I like both, honestly. So my favorite thing about my in-person crafting group is that most of the other people are talkers. And, well, you probably would not guess this, given that I stream and talk the entire time. Generally speaking, I am not much of a talker at all. If I'm not streaming and I'm at home all day, I can go all day without talking, saying a single word. And that was true even when I didn't live by myself. So I generally prefer to just listen. You can't have a stream and listen to other people. If you're on a stream, you have to talk. But there was a while where I had lots and lots of different people who like mostly spinning streams, and I spin alongside, and I really enjoyed that. I could trade a thing that involves strings and cover my eyes for one which involves strings or cover my eyes. I will do that pretty much every single time. Thankfully, with stream, like I look at the screen occasionally, but it's just to read comments, and then I'm not looking at it again after that. I think maybe if I just think of it as crafting time where other people are welcome to come along and sit with me, it might be easier. I don't know for sure, but that works for you. Yeah, I think, I mean, this particular situation sort of just, I don't know, hit a trauma note, I guess, or like really reminded me of just some pure misery from when I was a kid. And that's why it upset me so badly. But also, if I had been thinking of it like that to begin with, I don't think it would have hit that trauma note. So I think you're right, honestly. You talk a lot when you don't feel overwhelmed. But if there's too many people, you will feel overwhelmed and not talk. That's a mood. I can definitely have a decent conversation with one person, but the more people you add in there, the harder it gets and the less I talk. It's a bit different streaming because like there's nobody else physically in the room with me, and that's a big part of what causes problems for me. It's just that I'm overwhelmed around other people, but yeah, it could be talkative with some people, but mostly you get fatigued very quickly. That's also very fair. I'm like an absolute chatterbox around my sister. I always have been. And around one or two very old friends, but with my newer friends, of which there are vanishingly few, sort of on purpose. With my newer friends, they tend to have to carry the conversation. I have a really hard time thinking what to say. It's easier with my sister because we have so many like stupid little in jokes. So if I can't think of something, I can just say one of the stupid in jokes. And it's fine. But that doesn't work if you haven't known the other person for very long. Really, I think the reason that streaming works for me is because functionally, I am sitting in a room. Well, I'm sitting alone in my apartment and talking to myself, just responding to comments from other people, and also, you know, they're hearing me talk. But it's the fact that I'm physically by myself that seems to make it much easier for me to talk. It doesn't really make sense to me, but that was how my brain decides to do that in jokes thing with your spouse. Nice. I love getting to the point where you've essentially made up a whole new, totally incomprehensible, like language. That's one of my favorite parts of hanging out with my sister. We get along pretty well too, though. I'm pretty grateful for because I don't really get along with anyone else in my family. So glad to have my sister. Yeah, socializing with groups. And I feel like this might be like a regional thing or a cultural thing, or it might just be off base to begin with. But I feel like whenever I go to big crafting groups, people are not very polite. Like, it's not that they're mean, but it almost feels like a lot of social niceties and buffers and things like that sort of get ignored. And there's a lot of people, whether they're all strangers or not. And like, I kind of rely on those. I have a hard enough time socializing as it is. So when everything kind of gets flipped, it's like I really don't know. Chuck, trying to steal wool again. Yeah, I really don't know what to do. There's this one crafting group at a yarn store, the place I used to live. And I tried so hard to make it work because they were so close by. And the days that they had these groups even worked with my schedule. And I wasn't in a wheelchair at that point, so I just had to find room for my rollator, which wasn't quite as hard, only it was still challenging. But it was just like, I think I went there 4 or 5 times, and nobody at any point so much as said hello to me. Like, the only time anyone talked to me at all is if I said something directly to them, and they would say like a 1 to 2 word response. and then go back to talking like either to a group as a whole or to someone else in particular. Um, and it didn't necessarily seem like they were doing that with anyone else, but to be honest, I was so like I was kind of distraught, so I would not have noticed if they were anyway. So I stopped going to that after I think two two attempts that made me really, really sad. And I really do feel like it's just because it was a group. I don't think those people sucked or anything. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I think it's just sort of the setting. It's just different enough that the rules were all different. And yeah. Oh, hi, Chuck. She's sitting directly underneath my chair with her catnip mouse. She's very baby. Yeah, it did feel pretty unfriendly. There's one near you Friday evenings. You want to try going there, but that's what you're afraid of happening too, and it's so much effort to go. It varies so much in your opinion. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like now that I've had that happen, I'm certainly not gonna try another crafting group again, other than the one that I half started. And the only reason that I even agreed to the one that I half started was because I was thinking like, look, there's no way that's gonna happen if I am, one of three people and I've been there from the start, right? Like that can't possibly happen in that case. And that's not the issue I've been having, so I think that was probably correct. But it was a miserable enough experience that I think I've learned that lesson. I will not be trying it again. I've been to a fair few different ones. Like there were quite a few at the library at a place I used to live. The library was close by, so it was convenient to go by. But like absolutely every single person there was an older woman, and I am a guy in my mid-20s, late 20s. So I felt incredibly out of place, and they made it clear that I was out of place. So I went once, and like they were polite, but they were not friendly, if that makes sense. And I just got very hostile is far too strong of a word, but it's like a word that means hostile but less. I can't think of that word. That's what they were like. And I also got the feeling that they were annoyed that I was there because it was making it harder for them to talk about certain things they wanted to talk about. So yeah, I didn't even last the whole meeting on that one. I just got up and left without a word about half an hour in. I don't have good luck with craft groups. I think my appearance, especially before I was in a power chair, really did not help me. But now that I'm in a power chair, that has its own awkward connotations. So, no, not connotations, but like it brings its own set of awkward, weird shit along with it. So, it makes me look a lot less threatening, but yeah, I don't know. Thank you both for validating. I was definitely thinking, I've been thinking like, well, I'm probably just a bit too sensitive. It's fine. But in retrospect, actually, that did suck. Probably not super overreaction. I don't know. It also, it doesn't matter that much. It's just a hangout group. But I can't imagine, like, in my own crafting group, I do literally whatever I can to make other people feel welcome. Like if somebody new comes in, I will immediately involve them in conversation. I'll ask them questions about what they're doing. Maybe the only reason I do that is because I've sat at many crafting groups wishing someone would like try at all to acknowledge my existence, and I don't want other people to feel that way. But it's like, why? What is up with all the people who didn't do that? I just don't understand. That's another one of those, I don't know, autistic worldview things, I think. I take the golden rule very seriously. I always have. Problem is, it's a lot more nuanced than I am capable of thinking of it. And at least I figured that part out, and that everybody sort of interprets it different ways. But yeah, nonetheless. You can be sensitive and also experience people being jerks. That's true. That is a good point. Also, sensitive people should have places to go and socialize. People shouldn't be jerks about it. Yeah, that's the thing. I thought, like, I mean, I've been part of terrible clubs before. I guess I just thought, like, a knitting club or fiber arts club would just be, like, better in that regard. But it's been even more cliquey. All the ones that I've gone to. That said, though, and I realized I didn't mention this earlier, but oh, Chuck, all of the crafting groups I've been to have been in the state where I currently live. Chuck, what is it? And not in the state that I'm from. And I've lived here for 8 years now, I think, and I still experience culture shock. People behave very differently, and their idea of what is polite is very different from not just my idea of what is polite, but just the general idea of what is polite where I'm from. And I think that has not helped. It hasn't helped other people warm up to me, and it hasn't helped me warm up to other people. So that's undoubtedly also part of the issue. I don't know, like maybe they were all waiting for me to introduce myself or something, but I just, we don't do that where I'm from. Somebody introduces you or asks you who you are. You don't introduce yourself. I don't know. Definitely trying to get over it while not also doing that thing I sometimes do where I'm like, well, I just won't ever care about this ever again, or invest myself in this ever again, or have human connection, or feel emotion ever again. Because I do tend to jump to that extreme, like at the drop of a hat, very easily. That's almost my default at this point. And like when I say it out loud, I know it's quite dumb. I know that's not a good way to go through life, but it sure as hell feels easier. I don't know. The crafting groups you enjoyed were in California. Oh, that's where I'm from. Yeah, I feel like if I had gone to a crafting group in California, I feel like I would have a better time there. I didn't think that we had such a strong culture. Like really, I didn't feel like there was some particular Californian culture until I moved away, and I realized like, wow, these people are absolute fucking weirdos. Or maybe we did have a culture back there. Nice to find another Californian though. It's awesome. Oh, you're not from there. You lived there a long time. Okay, that makes sense. Fair enough. You heard a lot about your hometown, that people were known for their friendliness, and you never really felt it, but you did have more trouble making friends when you moved. Yeah, it's always so hard to like pinpoint what changed when you notice things like that. Like the other thing is that when I lived in California, I was a lot younger, and I was definitely more like I looked like a twink, I guess, to be honest, and was a twink also. And by the time that I moved to where I currently live, I didn't really look like a twink, and especially now, I mean, I just look like a full-grown man. Um, and that definitely changes people's perception of you, like how masculine you look, how threatening they perceive you as. And then it changed again quite drastically when I got a wheelchair. Now I don't even know what to think. I don't know. A lot of people just randomly decide I'm a girl because I'm in my power chair. Like they'll see nothing but my power chair because I'll be facing away from them, and they'll just assume I'm a girl, which is infuriating. I'm trans, so it's fucking infuriating. But I don't know. People see what they want to see. Also, there's not very good eye care where I live, and I don't think that is helping matters. I think a lot of people genuinely cannot fucking see, myself among them, but still, like, goddamn. You're autistic, and also pandemic happens, so it's hard to say. Yeah, yeah. The pandemic made it hard. Autism also definitely makes it hard. So weird to you. Why would the chair be what people pay attention to? That's all what people pay attention to. I mean, like once I get to know somebody, thankfully that does go away. But until I know them, that is the only thing they see and the only thing they care about. To the point where people refer to me as a wheelchair. Not there's a person in a wheelchair, but just there's a wheelchair, as though it's fucking driving itself. There's a lot of dehumanization that comes with specifically being a wheelchair user. I mean, because I've been disabled my whole life, and I was using a cane for quite a long time, and then a rollator for about a year after that. And the bigger your mobility it is, the more people will just see the object and not see you. Sort of the conclusion that I've come to. It's not pleasant for sure. But I've also, I don't know, I've had to work pretty hard to develop a thicker skin against strangers. Because they can just be so cruel, but they can also just be so fucking annoying and thoughtless. And yeah, the first couple of weeks before I had developed that thicker skin, I was basically just having a breakdown constantly. The way that people treat wheelchair users, at least in the state that I'm currently in, I can't go to another state. The way people treat wheelchair users here is not good. Not good at all. You use a rollator. Nice. It's been good for you, but you probably don't notice people treating you weirdly. The only complaint you've had is that people want to help and won't take no for an answer. Yeah, I definitely, I can relate for sure. I think when I was using a rollator, I personally appreciated the help a little bit more. Like, I didn't necessarily need it, but it was at least helpful to have the door held open for me most of the time. Now that I'm in a wheelchair, which is much wider than a power chair or than a rollator and much less maneuverable, when people rush to help, they usually just get in the way and make it impossible for me to do the thing I was already confidently doing by myself. Which has helped in developing a thicker skin, ironically, because it's kind of fucking hard to take people's opinions seriously when they're also so dumb they can't figure out that for you to get in the door, they need to not block the entire door. So, I don't know. I mean, I know it's not that people are stupid, it's that people simply do not know how to act around others with mobility. That's why they rush to help most of the time, and that's why they don't take no for an answer most of the time. And that's why they don't help in a helpful way most of the time. But when that happens, like day after day without fail, it does get fucking annoying. At least to me. I'm glad the rollator has been good for you. I really liked my rollator while I could use it, and then I just stopped having the upper body strength to hold myself up on the rollator and lost the ability to walk very much. So seems like it'll be a wheelchair on out for me. I definitely like the rollator better than the cane, though. It was just a lot more helpful. Being able to sit down whenever I needed to was an absolute godsend. People don't offer to do things you need help with, just stuff you can do yourself. Yeah. Sorry, that's also your experience. It's really annoying. Because, like, there are many things that I would happily accept help for, and I'd be very grateful. But the problem is, I found asking for help does not usually get me. I only get help when other people decide to offer help, and that is never when I actually need it. So, yeah, I can relate for sure. Really, I just wish people would ask instead of jumping to conclusions, you know? Like, I'm never going to be annoyed if somebody asks me if I need them to open the door or hold the door open, because sometimes I do. And I think it's a polite thing to ask. Certainly no problems with that. It's just when they run over and then, as you said, won't take no for an answer. That is when it gets really annoying. Yeah, the seat was the best part of it for me. I feel like it didn't really help me walk any easier, but before I had the rollator, I basically just had to sit on the ground anytime I needed a break. Getting up off the ground was really hard. So it helped a ton just for that reason. Probably not. At this point now, I mean, I use my power chair outside of the house 100% of the time because I really don't have a choice on that one. But when I'm inside, I walk or occasionally crawl, but I typically don't ever use my power chair in the house. But I don't know. I'm definitely like losing the ability to walk at all, and I kind of can't think of anything that like the problem is that taking weight off your legs or taking weight off your legs so that it's easier to walk. You still have to put that weight somewhere, and my arms and hands and shoulders cannot have that weight added to them. They're not going to deal well with that. They dislocate. My shoulders do. So I have a feeling I'm on my way to becoming a 100% of the time wheelchair user. Well, it is what it is. What else can you say? You like when people ask as long as they don't get huffy when you say no. I know, right? Like, why even ask if you're not going to take no for an answer? Or if you're going to be a dick about it? Like, you might as well just spring into action at that point. It's always very odd. I think we'll probably finish up spinning these roll legs. I have one more other than the one I'm currently working on, which I may be a quarter of the way through. But I think I should be able to finish those up. So the first solid color bobbin, I did 14 roll legs and I had 4 leftovers. So, okay, so it used 10. So I just need to make 6 more roll legs on the string tomorrow, which should be a breeze. And spin 10 more, which might be doable. And then the next stream is flying and or dog hair experiments. I don't know what to process the dog hair on, is the only thing. That's why I haven't done it yet. I've never spun dog hair before. I've spun rabbit hair, which is only relevant in that it was hair from a different one of my coworkers' pets. But I have not ever spun dog hair. And I don't really know what would be the best method for processing it. And I don't know if I want to use my cards, even if that would be the best method, because I don't want to get dog hair in my cards. There's something weird sort of stuck in the yarn. Yeah, I don't know. I think I could probably spin it with note prep, but I just don't know if that would be best. It seems sort of similar, like just feeling it. It seems kind of reminds me of camel down a tiny bit. Like it's a little bit toothsome, and it's short, and it's fairly soft, and it's very straight. But I haven't really explored enough of it to figure out yet. I know that like it's gonna vary massively depending on breed, and the dog that this one came from the mud, so no help there. Hard to say. I was saving up to buy a new pair of hair clippers. I've had some bad luck with the ones that I've gotten, and I can't actually stand long enough to use the pair that I had. So it was becoming a big problem. So I was saving up, like my next big purchase was going to be a new pair of hair clippers I could actually use. But I found a pair for only $50 that seemed to work just fine and fill all my needs in that regard, which is way less than what I was budgeting for, which means I could maybe move towards the drum carder idea. The only thing is the drum carders that are electric rather than hand crank are a lot more expensive, and I absolutely can't hand crank them. There's just no way. I tried doing that on my friends and it was hard like 3 years ago, so it's going to be impossible now. But I'm kind of thinking like maybe that if I can save up enough, maybe that could be my reward for spinning all this cotton yarn. We'll have to see. You don't know either. You don't like dog smell, so you've never wanted to spin dog fur. I don't either. And I'm mostly spinning it because, see, I agreed to spin my coworker's rabbit fur because I was very curious. And I've spun Angora rabbit before, and I was mostly, I was wondering if it was even going to be spinnable. But then my other coworker overheard that I did that and was like, "Hey, could you spin my dog's fur?" So I don't know, and I was like, I'm kind of curious, but I also really don't like dogs. And additionally, I don't like dogs either. Just had a lot of bad experiences with dogs, so I'm really not a fan of dogs. And due to the dog smell thing, I don't want my cards to smell like dogs. And I also don't want the subsequent yarn to smell like dogs, especially when it gets wet. I'm really not going to enjoy that. So I'm almost thinking that just from a smell perspective alone, it might be better to just not do prep. I really think it is doable without a prep, because I was able to draft a little bit without any issues. So an electric drum carder could be so nice. I know, for real. Like, bats are not my favorite prep. They're probably my least favorite prep, but they're the only one that can be automated. Oh no, they're not. Roving is my least favorite prep. Bats are my least favorite prep that I can make myself. But yeah, I am rapidly losing the ability to do much at all with any of my fiber tools, and especially like big batches. I really can't card or comb big batches of anything. I'm pretty limited by that, and I have a lot of wool, and I just feel like I could get through my wool so much faster if I had a drum carder. My other idea is maybe renting one, but that would kind of force me to prep a whole bunch of wool all at once rather than being able to do it at my own pace, and that would probably still lead to injuries. So I think like it's probably a better idea to buy one and then try and resell it once I can no longer use it or spin anymore. Hopefully I've got a while left, but unfortunately you never know. We may not finish that last bobbin after all, because my wrist just started hurting pretty bad. So not that last bobbin, that last roll that I prepped. I really hope that my compression cuffs help. I guess I could add a little. Bear with me. To make this last a little longer. I really like Tiger Balm, or Tiger's Balm, whatever it's called. That's what I'm using right now. But the smell is way too strong. Like, I like the smell as a smell, but the intensity of it has once or twice given me a migraine. At the moment, it has not done that, thankfully. And I'm liking the smell very much. I guess that's what happens when you use herbal salves. All right, hopefully that'll help a bit. Do I have a spinners guild here? Your local one has equipment to borrow. You don't go, but you've looked into it. We have a couple of spinners guilds. I just don't. I mean, I haven't looked into it and seen if they have a drum carder either, to be fair. But I have found that all of these spinning related places I've gone have been incredibly inaccessible. And my power chair has a lot of limitations, like it's not just that I have to be able to get into the building, but also there needs to be an easy bus route there too. That alone makes it hard to get in those places in the city that aren't on main roads. And additionally, I would probably have to bring it home by myself, which would be very hard as well. So that is a possibility. And definitely if I end up, like if they end up just being way out of my price range, that's probably what I'll have to do. Maybe I have to bribe my sister to drive me there or something. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. It's the power chair issue. That, and I desperately don't want to be part of a spinning guild. And I don't know how to be like, hey, I don't want to talk to you, but let me rent your equipment without being super mean. I don't think there is a way to do that, honestly. They have drum carters for $5 a month. That is a steal. That's awesome. Are spinners guilds frequent in the USA? Yeah, I agree with CRL. They're pretty common in big cities. I don't think they're common in small towns. Maybe a few small towns if they have a lot of spinners there for whatever reason. But yeah, I think we've got 2 here. And it seems to, interestingly enough, there's a very strong generational divide. One of them, like, pretty much exclusively has people in their 50s and up. And the other one is mostly 20s and 30s, which I don't really understand myself. But I also, I guess I tend to get along with people who are older than me. Like, the median age of my friends is maybe 50. I just get along better with older people. Always have. But anyway, yeah. If you live in a big city in the US, there may well be one near you. And also, I think the same is true for Europe too. There's, at least having talked to my spinning friends in Europe, that seems to be the case. A spinning guild, if not in their city, then in a city nearby, but usually in their city. The one you're talking about is an hour away from you. Ugh, that sucks. Mine is only like 30 minutes by car. It's just that if I go by car, then I have to use my transport chair, and I can't move myself in that. So my sister would have to push me. And he's very small and not very strong. And I'm a fairly tall, big person. So, at least compared to her. I don't think I'm a tall, big person compared to necessarily the average person here. Certainly not now because I'm sitting down all the time. But compared to her, I'm much taller and bigger, so it's really hard for her to push me. And then if I take the bus / go in my wheelchair, it's an hour and a half. 3-hour round trip. And then half of that with a massive electric drum carter on my lap. It just doesn't sound doable. I looked into it when I was trying to find rooms as well. And it was the same issue. Getting the thing back was so difficult, and they didn't have any options for helping you. My only option would have been to rent a Home Depot truck and load it myself. And even back then, that was not really doable. I feel like either you live in the countryside and no spinners, or you live in a city and don't mess with wool. Yeah. I think like people who live in a city tend to be more drawn to, I don't know, newer things, technological things. Like, if you really care about technology, you are not going to be caught dead living in a small town because they're not going to have good internet. They're not going to have the latest whatevers. Maybe that's an outdated view, but that was certainly the case when I was growing up. Was, if you were okay living in a backwater shithole, then you probably were something of a Luddite. And I feel like spinners and Luddites, like the Venn diagram of that, it's not quite a circle, but it's close. There's not a lot of people who appreciate technology and enjoy spinning. I'm sure there's some, but I feel like if you appreciate technology, you're probably more in the camp of a machine can do this for me and then I can focus on other things. Which is not, I mean, that's a valid way to look at it for sure, but not conducive to starting spinning groups. You live in a rural area near a city, your internet is terrible. Wish it was better. Yeah. I really hope I can move to a rural area near a city at some point. I don't want to move again for a while because I fucking hate moving. But the city is so stressful to me. I really can't deal with it that much longer. But I can't move to like the middle of nowhere because all of my doctors are in the city. So it's true. Spinning is technology. Not wrong. Got a mental image of some tech bro, like, looking at a spindle and being like, generate me an image that, and then getting mad when it doesn't do that. It's true, though. I mean, like, the technology of spinning has been vital to human advancement. And I can imagine that when we first started figuring it out, it must have been huge. Must have been crazy. That's the sort of thing where I really wonder if that sort of technology like comes about, over the course of like just one generation or even less time. And obviously, that sort of thing would come about probably in isolated tribes and then maybe spread from there, maybe not. But like, were people using spindle adjacent tools for a long time that then eventually turned into even more spinning adjacent tools, and then eventually those were spindles, and there was never really a clear cutoff? Or was it like people were making cordage and then somebody had an idea and it just changed things for everybody? I don't think there's ever going to be any evidence one way or another or a way to answer that question, but I always wonder. I'd love to be a fly on the wall at that time. Generate me a yarn. Accurate. Yeah, that's true. Technology and textile have the same Greek word. It's a good point. I mean, even just thinking about how much things must have changed for your average person when um, when spinning mills became popularized, like that must have been so huge, your town getting a spinning mill. I wonder if people mostly thought of it as a good change or a bad change. Because obviously, like, the good change would be you don't need to spend anywhere near as much time keeping your family clothed anymore. But the downside is, your kids are now working in the spinning mill factory and getting their so that kind of sucks. I don't know. I wonder. I think that I don't know. I mean, I personally believe in reincarnation. And I think that probably in all of my past lives I've been a spinner. There's just something so correct about it to me. And I was so I was so bullheaded about learning it too, even though I suck at it. And like, okay, I don't suck at it, but I sucked at it to begin with, and it doesn't come easy to me at all. I had to work really hard to get to a level where most people are able to achieve pretty easily. And yet I have still been doing it avidly this whole time. And I think that's just because inherently I'm a spinner. And I think that's probably always been true for me. That's beautiful thinking. Well, thank you. The way we use the word forgets the labor rights aspect. Yeah. I mean, I think most things forget the labor rights aspect, broadly speaking. Like, my job is union, and it's still so insanely bad. In part because the union is, like, it's so bad for everyone. And unfortunately, my union is sort of like a big union that works with a whole bunch of different types of workers in different locations. So they don't necessarily, it's not like your union for your workplace where it's headed by somebody who works there and you are all very aware of the issues. It's not like that at all. So it's so hard to actually get any help on anything. I mean, they got us a raise, which is not nothing at all. I'm very thankful for the raise. They have not done anything else. And that's with a union, If it's that bad with a union, I don't even want to think about how bad it is for right now. In the US specifically. Oh, hello. New person in. Skylark Spinner. That's a nice name. Been lurking, but hi, this convo's been really interesting as someone in the tech field who does a lot of crafting. Hello. It's nice to have you in. Do you feel that you, out of curiosity, do you feel that you integrate your spinning into your love of tech? Like, is there a way to integrate them, or do they tend to stay separate for you? I'm curious. You've never worked in a place with a union. Oof. They can, unfortunately, sometimes be very similar to places with unions. But having worked both union and non-union jobs, the level of insanity that people get away with at a non-union job is horrendous at times. So it's definitely worse without a union, that's for sure. You like to keep them separate. You don't like mixing work and hobbies if you can. That makes sense. That's very fair. I also don't like mixing work and hobbies. I mean, it's rare that I can in my job other than knitting while I'm at work, which I do fairly often, but I don't. That still feels somewhat separate to me. But the times that I've taken commissions or had to make my livelihood off of spinning has just been totally sucked the joy out of it in every way. I get what you mean. This is the last row bag. I think we should be able to finish it off. Which is nice. It's been a pretty long stream. I don't think I've done a 3-hour stream in a while. I still got 10, 15 minutes left on this roll lag. That is I guess from somebody with really bad time blindness. Actually, that probably mean nothing, to be honest. Yeah, it has been a long stream. Please don't feel like you have to stick around or anything if it gets too late for you. Obviously, you have your own schedule. I think it's because usually I'm streaming on weeknights, and it's like I kind of have a hard cutoff because I need to get enough sleep. But it's a weekend, so I can do whatever I want. Also, I felt like I sort of spent all day doing nothing, so I've been pretty bored. So this has been a really good retreat. I've kind of just been buying stuff all day, and the problem with buying stuff is it's mostly involves waiting, and it involves very little actual doing of things. So. Hope I'm doing okay. Maybe fixing the footman made it different. Yeah, I'm not doing too bad. I think fixing the footman really did change it because, like, I don't know, my wrists are definitely hurting, but that's not a footman issue. And my ankles, which have been killing me, especially the last couple of streams, are fine. Completely fine. So I'm guessing that was the footman, and I'm really hopeful that if I can fix the wheel wobble, that might help even more. But already it's definitely better. You appreciate me streaming. I've had this on in the background while doing some sewing. Oh, nice. That sounds enjoyable. What are you sewing? I've been trying to finish your knit top. Don't know why it's taking so long, but it's been nice to have some company. Nice. Also sounds quite enjoyable. Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. Like, I can knit and crochet by myself, but when it comes to spinning at this point, if I don't have company, I'm probably not gonna do it. And I'm definitely not gonna enjoy it that much. Like, I need something else to occupy my brain when I'm spinning, so I might put on, a YouTube video or some music or something like that. But then that means that I end up spending a lot more of my attention with the thing that I'm watching or listening to, and paying less attention to just the joy of spinning. Whereas if I'm talking, I can definitely still pay attention to spinning. So it sort of feels like if I'm watching something while spinning, I don't enjoy the process of it at all. I just get to enjoy the product, which, that's not really worth it for me. That's not my style. wanted to spin while watching, but gave up for tonight and went to lie down. Also quite fair. Company is nice. You're working on a shift for reenactment. Oh, that's cool. Fifths are one of the few things I've ever managed to sew. Probably much less, what's the right word? Elaborate or technically correct than what the one that you're sewing, I'd assume, because I'm not much of a sewist. It's quite trying. But they're nice. They're very fun to sew. They're so comfy to wear too. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to trying out the thing I clearly should have been doing this whole time, which was leaving a buffer zone on my wool cards for the other 6 of these I'm gonna do. Cause like there's so many little totally unprocessed bits in a sea of otherwise perfectly processed wool, and I cannot possibly think what else would be causing this. Like some of them are definitely neps or noils, and there's a little bit of shortcuts, but not too bad. But it's like those are easy to get around. It's the entire locks that are completely like still in lock formation and everything that is not working out for me. Obviously, I don't know why it took me this long to think of that. Literally, like, I mean, I've been spinning longer than I've been using hand cards to prep my materials, but I think it's been about like hand cards at least for this. I'm really excited to go check on my wool when I do ends this stream. Oh, not my wool. I'm so used to dyeing wool that I just said wool automatically. On my cotton is what I will be checking on. Because I am dyeing it with avocado, and it tends to, more than other dye materials, I found it tends to sort of just sit there, like the color just sits there in the dye bath for a while, and it's very slowly absorbed. So when I first put it in, it was like sort of orangish pink water and white cotton, and it had started to go a tiny bit pink when I sat down to spin. And I think it might, it's been 3 hours. I think it might be more pink, hopefully. I'm really curious how it'll turn out. There's a couple of my normal dyes that I've used on cotton before, although never with the proper moistness. But avocado is not one of them. I'm very, very curious. I don't actually know, I guess. I didn't check if avocado can transfer to cotton. I feel like I'm just gonna assume that everything that works as a wool dye can potentially be used as a cotton dye, unless I find out otherwise, particularly with the amount of misinformation that currently exists. Yeah. I've always wanted to try dyeing with avocado. We should. Um, it's a very nice dye material. It's one of the few that doesn't smell really bad. And if you enjoy eating avocados, then it's like eating avocados somehow becomes even better now. And I love avocados, so it's a very happy bonus. for me. You need to remember to ask your spouse to start saving onion skins. Yeah, onion skins are really fun. And also, free tip for you. I don't know which of you does the shopping or what, but when you buy onions, if there's bulk bins rather than just like bags of preset amounts, if there's bulk bins, there's usually tons and tons of onion peel at the bottom. And so what I often do when I'm buying onions is I'll buy like 2 onions, which is about how many I need. But then I'll also go through and put all of the peels I can find in the bag as well. And you do have to pay for them with this method, but also you're paying for them at the price of an onion, which weighs considerably more. So it's not exactly like, I think it adds maybe 20 cents for me. So you can get a lot more that way, a lot faster, if you want to try something with it quickly. You made onion skin dye yesterday. That's awesome. Have you used anything with it yet? It's very exciting. Your goal is to get yellow dyes. Or wait, yellower dyes. Oh, okay, more yellow dyes. That makes sense. Marigolds make a really beautiful, really intense yellow, but also depending on what you mordant it with. I think you said earlier that you were mostly using baking soda and vinegar for mordants, which are fine for onion for sure, because onion it doesn't need a fixative as much as most other dyes. But alum makes really, really beautiful bright yellows. So that might also help. Gonna have to remember that. Yeah. I feel like at a certain point I might regret telling everybody that, because maybe one of the people I tell it to is going to go to my supermarket and get all the onion peels. But that's okay. It's like those things straight up go in the trash if nobody takes them. Not even the compost, just the trash. So you're doing everybody and the entire planet a favor if you don't put them in the trash and do something with them. So that's all the roll eggs that I had. Let me show you the progress so far. There you go. So we've got this full bobbin, this partial bobbin. That's actually more than I thought we'd have, just from one little session. And then also this bobbin as well. They're not actually full bobbins, but it's full compared to, it's full in terms of it has the same amount that this one has, and that's all I have of that stuff. So, but yeah, I'm really excited to apply this. The more of it I spin, the more I think it's actually going to be really pretty. Whereas initially I was sort of just like, well, it'll use up the wool, which is also true still, nonetheless. You like the color of it? Yeah, me too, thank you. I don't know if you got here from Tumblr or not, but I will definitely be posting pictures where you can see the colors hopefully a little bit more accurately, and also actually see the texture, because I don't think that's really visible from the webcam. Looking good, thank you. Yeah, I'm pleased. I'm gonna call it for the night because I've run out of things to spin. But you heard from Tumblr too. Nice. Yeah. We'll definitely see it then. I don't know when, but hopefully soonish. I've got like a whole backlog of stream projects that I finished on stream and then need to take a picture of for Tumblr, and I just haven't quite done that yet. Soon though. I'm pretty much done washing all the washcloths, which is what I was waiting for on the last one. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna head out. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for joining the stream and also chatting. Also, always really appreciate when people have comments and stuff, because it makes it even more fun being able to talk. I hope you all have a good night. I will get some rest, and most likely we'll be streaming tomorrow too, same time. So yeah, Thanks for the company. Yeah. Good night.